Well, it's Thursday, February 12th, 2026. I'm Brittany Noble, and here's what's coming up on the breakdown. Today marks day 2 of the Love Forward Together March in North Carolina as activists continue their journey from Wilson to Raleigh, calling for a moral and political awakening all across the country. Black Star Network correspondent Wesley Lowery is on the ground with marchers and will join us live with the latest. A 75-year-old man in Alabama is facing execution, even though prosecutors say he was not the shooter. Now jurors and the victim's family are urging Governor Kay Ivey to grant clemency. An orthopedic surgeon joins us to explain why mobility, strength, and prevention may be the key to living longer and living better. The breakdown starts right now. Well, the House has narrowly passed the Save America Act, and the bill is now headed to the Senate. The sweeping elections measure would significantly reshape voting rules nationwide. The legislation passed Wednesday by a 218 to 213 vote, with Republicans unanimously in favor. Texas Congressman Henry Culler was the only Democrat to support the bill. If enacted, the Save America Act would require Americans to provide documentary proof of U.S. citizenship in order to register to vote in federal elections. The bill would also mandate photo identification for in-person voting and tighten rules surrounding the mail-in ballots. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries criticized this legislation, saying it was designed to suppress voter turnout rather than protect election integrity. Well, the Trump administration says it's ending its immigration crackdown in Minneapolis. Border Czar Tom Homan announced the administration is shutting down Operation Metro Surge, a federal immigration enforcement effort that brought roughly 3,000 immigration agents into the Minneapolis area. That's nearly 5 times the size of the city's police force. Homan said the operation is ending due to what he called successful enforcement efforts in coordination with local law enforcement. This announcement comes just weeks after federal authorities shot and killed 2 U.S. citizens during enforcement activity. The Department of Homeland Security says more than 4,000 undocumented immigrants have been apprehended since the operation began in November. The survivors and victims' families of a racist mass shooting will get $1.75 million from Mean Arms. That's a Georgia gun accessory maker. That shooting killed 10 Black people at a Tops Friendly Market in Buffalo, New York back in 2022. The settlement also comes with the halt of selling the device in New York. The lawsuit filed by New York Attorney General Letitia James covers claims from various victims' families and survivors at the supermarket. They also reached agreements to resolve their own separate suits against the gunman, Peyton Grendon's family, and a Vintage Firearms LLC gun seller. The claims against Mean Arms focus on an item that locks a magazine onto a rifle. The lock is supposed to keep people from swapping high-capacity magazines, which are illegal in New York. A 75-year-old man in Alabama is facing execution, even though the state admits he did not commit the killing. Charles Sonny Burton has been on death row for more than 30 years for his role in the 1991 AutoZone robbery in Talladega, where customer Doug Battle was shot and killed. Prosecutors say Burton was outside the store when the shooting happened. The gunman, Derek DeBruce, later had his death sentence reduced to life in prison, but Burton remains on death row. Now, Alabama Supreme Court has cleared the way for Burton to be executed by nitrogen gas. Battle's daughter and several jurors are urging Governor Kay Ivey to grant clemency, calling the case a major question of fairness and justice. The family of 41-year-old Jean Wilson Brutus says the healthy Haitian asylum seeker died after spending 24 hours in custody at the Delaney Hall ICE Processing Center in Newark, New Jersey. In a news release, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement described Brutus as a 41-year-old criminal illegal alien from Haiti. The agency says he passed away on December 12th from suspected natural causes. Brutus's family disputes that characterization and says he was in good health before being detained. The detention facility where Brutus was held has faced criticism in the past over conditions for detainees. Cory Booker publicly called out the center last year on Facebook over concerns about the detainee treatment. And the Trump administration is terminating $600 million in CDC grants for HIV and STD prevention programs, as well as HIV surveillance. A Department of Health and Human Services spokesman told ABC News that the cuts will impact funding in California, Colorado, Illinois, and Minnesota, saying the grants are ending because they do not reflect agency priorities. The terminations include funding for HIV surveillance in Los Angeles County, expanded access to PrEP for Black cisgender women, and STD research efforts in the city of Chicago. The cuts are raising concerns, especially since President Trump launched a federal initiative in 2019 aimed at ending the HIV epidemic in the United States by 2030. Gene Simmons has strong opinions about who belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Kiss rocker is not backing down from his beliefs that the organization should not induct hip-hop stars. His group was inducted in 2014, 2 years after Ice Cube earned a spot in the institution as part of the rap group NWA. Well, the singer says the genre doesn't speak language. He made the comments on Legends and Leaders podcast, explaining that he thinks critics and official musical institutions can't be trusted to determine a band or artist's relevance when he brought up the Rock Hall as an example. Simmons went on to say he mentioned this many times in print and even briefly stated he's not from the ghetto.
It's not my music. I don't come from the ghetto. It doesn't speak my language. And I said in print many times, hip hop does not belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, nor does opera, symphony orchestras. How come the New York Philharmonic doesn't get the Rock and Roll? Because it's called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But he shot back and said, no, it's the spirit of rock. Okay, fine. So Ice Cube and Grandmaster Flash and all these guys are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I just want to know when Led Zeppelin's going to be in the Hip Hop Hall of Fame. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, really? No. Music has labels because it describes an approach. By and large, rap, hip hop is a spoken word art. And you put, beats in back of it and somebody comes up with a musical phrase, but it's verbal. Ice Cube and I had a back and forth, and he's a bright guy, and I respect what he's done.
A hidden safe house, once used by the Underground Railroad, has been discovered inside one of New York City's most well-known historic museums, the Merchant's House. The landmark was once a residential home, later preserved as a historic site in 1936, showcasing what life looked like for a wealthy family in the late 1800s. But behind a row of bedrooms on the second floor, researchers uncovered a vertical passageway believed to have been used by freedom seekers traveling in a secret during slavery. Historians say the discovery adds new evidence of how enslaved Africans escaped bondage, often with the help of both Black and white abolitionists. The Underground Railroad was a hidden network of safe houses and secret routes that helped guide people from the slavery legalized South to freedom in northern states. Coming up, the Black Star Network's Wesley Lowery has live coverage of the Love Forward Together March. That's a multi-day movement calling for political change and awakening in North Carolina. We'll go to him after the break. Remember, for more news headlines and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day, please visit the Black Star Network, your source for stories that matter to our community. We'll be right back. You're watching The Breakdown with Brittany Noble on the Black Star Network.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network. where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
I'm Risa Colbert, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Well, today marks day 2 of the Love Forward Together March in North Carolina. Black Star Network correspondent Wesley Lowery is there with the marchers as they travel to Raleigh from Wilson. Bishop William J. Barber II has worked with others to organize this movement as he calls for the nation to a moral and political awakening. Black Star Network's Wesley Lowery joins us now from the march that's already in progress. Wesley, tell us what's happening. Well, as we can see, the march there is already underway. I can hear Wesley a little bit now. Can you hear me, Wesley?
Barely can hear you, but here we are. You know, that's live television. We're here in the back of the march. We're about half of the way, actually more than half of the way to Raleigh now, coming from Wilson, where we've been marching for 2 days with Reverend Barber and others.
And tell me a little bit more about this morning and what's taken place.
You asked me to tell you about this morning?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Sorry about that. I'm having some trouble hearing you. As you can see, I don't have any headphones in. Doing it live. We're out here in the middle of nowhere, which is great. But it's been a good morning. We started out with about a few hundred people. Started moving from the east to the west. Again, this is a rally and a march that is in response to the Republican efforts to redistrict here in North Carolina. We know that those are ordered by Donald Trump in states like North Carolina, Indiana, Ohio, Texas, in order to strengthen the Republicans' very narrow hold in the House of Representatives. Now, Reverend Barber, other civil rights leaders across the country have responded to that. And so what we're seeing here is clergy members. We're seeing members of the community, some folks who've come in from other states who have responded to these calls and have showed up demanding something different. And so what we're going to see is we're going to continue marching for another maybe hour today. Then tomorrow, there's going to finish the march to Raleigh. And then on Saturday, there's going to be a big rally and conversation where Reverend Barber and others are going to give a call to action where they ask for people to continue demonstrating and resisting what have been the Trump administration's efforts to disenfranchise Black voters.
And Wesley, are you finding that more people are joining you on this march? I know you've been there since yesterday.
Of course, and so we are seeing people who are joining in. We're seeing people who are sometimes coming in from outside, folks who are joining from their homes or from local businesses, people who are driving to different points on the march and joining in, driving in. So it's been excellent. It's been great. But yes, we're seeing momentum picking up day over day.
What's the bishop's idea about how this is taking place so far? I mean, is this what he wanted?
Sure, of course. I mean, what we've seen and what we've heard Bishop Walker say is that we have, what we've heard him say is that we have to respond not just with resistance, but with vision. That people have to, whether it be activists, whether it be residents, whether it be politicians, we have to respond by laying out not just what we're resisting, but rather what we want to see happen. And so what we've seen here as we drive through what are rural parts of North Carolina is we are seeing people who are coming out of their homes, who are joining in from the rallies, and who are seeing this as a mobilization. And so like I said, it is, don't want to overstate it. We're not talking about thousands of people, but not today. But we remember that here in North Carolina, Reverend Barber held the Moral Mondays protest back in 2014. Started with 17 people, and by the end had as many as 80,000 people.
I know you met with some people earlier this morning. You actually interviewed them as they were walking. Tell me a little bit about the people you talked with and what their thoughts are.
Of course. Well, we talked to some folks who are longtime North Carolina residents, who are longtime North Carolina residents who said that they want to leave a better state and a better country for their grandchildren and children. We talked to some people who've come in from out of town who said they wanted to rally around what's happening here with regard to redistricting. And then, of course, we've talked to some young people, folks who have been moved and want to find a way to channel their political energy into action. What we're seeing, ICE and virtual deployed in cities across the country, as well as when we have calls from clergy, folks to take the streets and, of course, to register for votes. Now, all of this here in North Carolina is linked to the beginning of early vote registration and early voting, right? And so we see additional mobilization in part because of the call to action.
Well, what about the people in the neighborhoods? Has there been any response to this massive march happening right now?
Yes. As I said, we've seen some people who are coming out of their homes. We passed a few elementary schools and houses of worship in which people have come out. Of course, sometimes as we on 2-lane roads, 4-lane roads are passing people. Sometimes there are folks honking, waving. Now, you never know, right? As you know, some of the people you're going to be passing in this might just be coming to spectate, pulling their phones out to see what's happening. You never know their or not. But it is very clear as we work our way through these parts of Carolina that this is drawing attention and is mobilizing people as well.
And tell us a little bit more about the Mass People's Assembly on Valentine's Day. For those people that may want to participate in the event, what can you tell us about it?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the event. This is all leading up to the Mass People's Assembly on February 14th. For those people at home that may want to participate in it, can you tell us a little bit more about what it may be like?
Absolutely. Thank you, Brittany. And like I said, apologies for when I'm not here. And we're moving. We're rural North Carolina. We're just making it as we go. It's going to be a massive rally at the State House that, again, is going to be an event that is pegged to registering voters, getting out early voting, as well as giving a clear call to action, right? That what if you are someone at home who is concerned about what is happening, whether that be with ICE, whether that be with the Trump administration, whether that be with redistricting, the aim is to create protest, demonstration, have people's voice be heard, but also to give them specific things that they can do. And so Reverend Barber said there's 7 specific things, but one thing I always say is that when you talk about protest, when you talk about rally, when you talk about demonstration, you are always creating community. People are coming out, they're meeting people they didn't know, they're finding ways to pool resources. And so that you have what's happening today, but then what we also have is is folks who are being asked to put 5 people in a group text message and have them come meet us in Raleigh on Saturday. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how many people show up and what the message is.
I also think it's interesting as we look at the video today that there are people there from all different backgrounds coming together, and walking and marching together.
Absolutely. Multiracial set of folks. This is we've seen clergy from across different denominations. We've seen a lot of Black people, white people, Latinos. It really is and as I said, we're moving through a pretty rural part of North Carolina here. We're in between the cities, right? And so a lot of the folks coming out are folks who maybe politically wouldn't support a rally like this. But what is also true, and Reverend Barber has stressed this several times, is that this is an area where there were many tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people who were registered to vote in the last election and did not vote in the last election. And so it's not just about mobilizing people who maybe have been completely disaffected, but also people who are apathetic, people who are registered, who have voted previously, but for one reason or another sat out the most recent election. This is giving them a call to action to say, look, if you don't like what's going on, you need to show up come the midterms.
All right, Wesley Lowery reporting live from North Carolina on the Love Forward Together Mass People's Assembly that's coming up on the 14th, all organized by Bishop William J. Barber II. We appreciate you, and we know that you'll have much more today on Roland Martin Unfiltered, which starts at 6 p.m. Eastern. Also coming up, Roland Martin has a deep discussion with Dr. Frederick D. Hayes III about how to fight against voter suppression and build political power in Black communities. That's coming up after this break. Stay with us.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of Black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased Black voters. Their goal, erase Black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
What's happening? This is your man, Motown recording artist Kim. You are watching the Black Star Network.
Today in our Black and Missing segment, family members of Aisha Prather are asking for your help. They say she's been gone since April 16, 2019. Witnesses say she was last seen at 6:45 a.m. when she left her Tilford Court home in Maryland. They say she got into a white Toyota sedan with Maryland temporary tags. Her family has not been able to contact her since that time. The Prather family reports that she functions at a middle school level, and police and her family are concerned for her welfare. Prather was last seen wearing a black jacket over a multicolored shirt and black leggings. If you have any information, please contact the Montgomery County Police at 301-279-8000. Well, in case you missed it on Roland Martin Unfiltered, Roland talks with Dallas, Texas Friendship West Baptist Church senior pastor, Dr. Frederick D. Haynes III, about how to strategically fight voter suppression, build political power, and build Black communities.
Bring in Reverend Dr. Frederick D. Haynes III right now. We're going to talk to him about this Pew study, but this is what I'm talking about. Okay, When I was here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I was in Dallas a few weeks ago giving the MLK speech for the city of Dallas. Pastor Haynes, I saw on y'all social media there was a teach-in, an MLK teach-in, and they were laying out their action to register folks, to activate voters, to have Freedom Summer. There was a QR code, there was a whole and all these things were happening. And so what Cody just said, to me, here's what should be happening. Should be the alphas, the deltas, the AKs, the kappas, the sigmas, the iotas, the zetas, the omegas, Prince Hall, Mason, all these groups. There should be a calendar, and it should be, here are these town halls that are happening across the state. This is where they're having something this week, and then this week, and then this week. This is what's happening in the whole month of February, then the whole month of March, then the whole month of April. Next month, March 7th, everybody's going to be going to Selma to recreate the walk across the Edmonds-Pettus Bridge. I'm not interested in recreating a march. I'm interested in recreating the turnout. And I just think that, you take churches. I had a pastor, Pastor McKissick, when I had the NAN conference last year, he said, hey, we're having this session the black church in the age of Trump. I said, man, the hell with that topic. I said, NAN should be focused on mobilizing and organizing black preachers in Eastern North Carolina to win that Senate seat. And the same should be happening all across rural Georgia. I just think that we just have way too much. We have great organizations, churches and groups, but they simply are not organized and mobilizing properly. And it's just lots of conversation, but it's not clear, concise work.
Roland, you own it. And since you referenced when you were in Dallas preaching, because I need to emphasize you preached for the MLK celebration, one of the things you said that I hope we heard, as a matter of fact, I've been preaching it ever since, you quoted from the book of Nehemiah. And for me, you used the metaphor of Nehemiah building and battling. In one hand, they had tools to build the wall. In the other hand, they had tools to fight the enemy. And for me, what you're saying and the conversation you just had, we basically need to be planning to build our communities, build political power, build, and at the same time, we need to battle against voter suppression. We need to battle against all of the things that are determined to undermine the effort to vote. Right here in Dallas, Roland, as you well know, for decades, we've been able to vote in Dallas County and throughout the state of Texas, really, from early voting up through election day at any voting site in the county. This year, right, because some people don't want some people to vote, they're only allowing that during early voting, but come election day, you can only vote at your assigned site. And some of the sites that we used to have, we no longer have. And so March 3rd is going to be a hot mess of chaos because of the fact that some people don't want some people to vote. Now, if we do what you're saying, we are outlining every single week, we're going to do this. One of the things we're trying to do, especially with this campaign, is not only get people out to the polls early, but to structure and strategize ourselves so that just in case some folk didn't hear us and go to the polls on March 3rd, we are ready to give them rides where they need to go. We're ready to educate them as to where their site is. But the bottom line is there's a strategy that has been used against us, and we've got to be strategic ourselves. And so Roland, again, preached it. We got to be ready to build and battle.
Yeah, and I just want people to understand you don't have to ask anybody's permission. No. Gary Chambers is doing. They're doing these teach-ins in Louisiana. When I spoke in Columbus, Ohio last year, I was laying out to the brother there, and they were trying to do this whole citywide thing, and we were at dinner, and I was like, yeah, he was like, let me explain what we're gonna do. I just felt what they were doing was 30,000 feet. I said, bro, I need you to bring that on the ground, as Joe Madison said, put it where the ghost can get it. I said, we got to simplify this. We got to explain to people. City Hall 101, county government 101, school district 101. And what you just laid out, you got to understand that that in Texas, when you have a governor and when you have, they control the Secretary of State, then with the Attorney General, they are then controlling the voting apparatus. And then they are also screwing over blue counties, Harris County, Dallas County, because they are upset that they're actually blue. Well, when we don't vote, then they are still in power. Republicans did that in North Carolina. And so it's getting our folks. In fact, I sent a text the other day to the folks in North Carolina. I said, hey, y'all are 14 seats down in the House. Republicans control it. Okay, what seats are y'all targeting this election? You can't pick up all 14. Oh, you're targeting 5 or 6. What are the 5 and 6? And then what are you focused on in the next election? We had yesterday, there's 2 sisters on talking about protect our health care. And they were like, oh, we need this bill that Lauren Underwood, it passed in the House. I said, hey, you need 60 votes, right? They said, yeah, we got 47 in Democrats, right? I said, y'all need to identify the 13 so we know who to target. See, I'm tired of us just having this macro sort of strategy. What I am saying is it has to be a micro, a targeted strategy. We need to pick off that person, that person, that person. We need to take this person out of office, this person out of office, this person out of office, and target our resources and time and energy to doing that, as opposed to this general, hey, get out the vote, we hope you show up.
Right, no question. And a matter of fact, I had a conversation earlier today with Jennifer Jones Austin, and so we were discussing something in an upcoming conference they want us to do. And basically, they want us to do what you're saying we don't need to do any more of, and that is to have a conversation about what's going on as opposed to a mobilization for what we need to do going forward. And one of the things that we as a people have to get delivered from, and that is these panel discussions where all we do is talk about theories, but we never get around to mobilizing the practice. As you know, right now, we're in the midst of what was going on 70 years ago in Montgomery, Alabama. They didn't have no studies and panels about how to put on a bus boycott, or they were not having studies and panels to discuss how bad the bus system was in Montgomery. No, they decided, I'm sick and tired of this. As a matter of fact, Claudette Colvin said she got radicalized when her boy got railroaded for a crime he did not commit. And Claudette Colvin decided to sit down on the bus because they made up their minds to organize and mobilize. And so Black churches organized and mobilized. Miss Robinson organized and mobilized. This is our time for theoretically discussing what's going on, how bad things are. That has to be done with. We now have to start thinking strategically and thinking about mobilization, because everything that is being done to us is a result of strategic thinking. It's a result of them playing chess. And we ain't even on the board, let alone trying to play checkers. So in a real sense, it's very important that we begin to do, as you said, and that is target certain seats. And as we target those seats, and I'm not just talking about federal level, I'm talking about at the state level, I'm talking about at the county and the city level, we have to begin to target seats and then groom and grow leadership that is going to be accountable to the community because they've been connected with the community. We should already be thinking about, in Texas, 2027 and the legislative session that they are going to have in Austin, 2028. We got to be thinking about 2030. When the Tea Party lost in 2008, while we were partying, they were planning, and that's how they took over redistricting in 2010. It's all about strategically thinking ahead and planning as a result.
When you talk, so you are seeking congressional seat. The primary is March 3rd. And if there is a preacher listening, here's the first thing. If you are a preacher in Dallas, Grand Prairie, Fort Worth, because they changed the map, and what used to be the 30th Congressional District, it now extends across those three areas, correct?
Yeah, for real. I mean, Cedar Hill, Glen Heights, I mean, Mansfield, it's just crazy. And they took away the economic engines downtown, Love Field, the hospital district, all of that is gone now. And so we have to basically recognize that south of 30 is where District 30 is. So
if you're a church, if you're a preacher, a church leader, this is the first thing you got to do. Where is your church located? Which congressional district? Then what you should be saying is the precinct that where you're located. And let me help as many preachers as possible who forget. Surveying the people is biblical.
Thank you.
Let me say it again. Surveying the people is biblical. If you think I'm lying, just go look up Gideon. And so the point here is what the church should be saying is, okay, where are we located? What precinct are we in? And that church can go to the Board of Elections and pull the data and say, oh, these are the number of registered voters in this precinct. This how many people voted in the last election. So what I'm trying to say to a church, I don't need you going across the city. If multiple churches can be focused on going door to door, and you don't need permission in your precinct, Imagine what happens if that is replicated across 100 precincts.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, so they don't have to call your campaign. They don't have to call Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's campaign. The church could do it themselves and say, hey, we want to make sure if the voter registration deadline for the primary is passed, should be telling them early voting is starting. And then towards the election, use that exact same model to say our church will have X number of cars and vans available. So if you need a ride, call this number or text this number. We'll take you to the polls. Again, you don't even have to call the campaign. You can organize it yourself.
You can organize it yourself. And then, Ro, I want to add this to it, and that is because they're trying to be so slick in the state, we have to stay on top of up until the very last minute where the precincts are, where the voting locations are. That's what we're doing here. And then making sure, if we do it right, that we line up, look at our voter, not our voter roll, but our membership roster, and then line it up with their addresses and their voting precincts and their voting locations, and then make sure that they can use the church as that one-stop resource. This is where I need to go if I wait until March 3rd, but this is where I can go within the confines of the county where I live if I go ahead and vote early. And again, every one of my colleagues, I hope we're pushing every voter to vote early.
Absolutely. We were going to talk about something else, but I ain't care about them white evangelicals. We talking about how do we mobilize and organize our people.
Come on.
And that's really what this is about. And again, folks, the Texas primary is March 3rd. North Carolina is also March 3rd. So wherever you are listening, I need you to look at your state, and you need to find out when the primary is in your state. Carol in the control room, tomorrow, I need y'all to pull a list and we need to lay out the primaries that are in March. We need the dates, the primaries that are in April, in May, so we can let folks know that because again, I'm sick and tired of Black people undervoting and not maximizing our capacity. Final comment, Reverend Haynes.
Well, again, Roland, I'm just go back to what you said. It's been my mantra since I heard you speak in Dallas, and that is we got to build power and we got to battle against all that we're up against. And I ain't got to go there with this audience, but we got to build and we got to battle. And that requires being strategic in our thinking and thinking beyond. Again, we got to go after this election, no question about it, because it's upon us right now. But Roland, right after this election, we got to start thinking about 27, 28, 29, 30, and beyond. It's all about the chess game now.
Absolutely. The day after November election, 26, I'm already focused on 27.
Come on, man.
That's just and that's just how it is. Reverend Haynes, I appreciate it, Fred. Thanks a lot.
Well, tonight on Roland Martin Unfiltered, Roland will speak with the chair of North Carolina's Democratic Party about the party's strategy for the midterms. He will also cover key developments in the Louisiana Cancer Alley. That's the environmental racism case. And DeMaurice Smith, former executive director of the National Football League Players Association, will share insights on why no Black head coaches were hired during this hiring circle. You won't want to miss Roland Martin Unfiltered tonight, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern on the Black Star Network. Well, coming up after the break, everyone's talking about longevity, but the real question is, how do you stay strong enough to enjoy the life you're living? An orthopedic surgeon will join us after the break to explain why mobility and prevention could be the missing link in Black health, what you can start doing right now to protect your body long term. And if you like the work that we're doing here at the Black Star Network, understand that your support is absolutely critical to the work that we do. You can support us via Cash App using the Stripe code in the bottom left-hand corner. You can also help us out with credit cards. PayPal's are Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle at RolandSMartin.com, Rolling at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And if you're old school, You can send us a check and a money order. It's all payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Our goal is to raise $1 million by December 31st, and so we really, really appreciate your support. We'll see you after the break.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Violent white supremacy is, quote, the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland.
The greatest terrorist threat to the homeland is the homegrown violence stream, including hate crime committed on behalf of some kind of white supremacist ideology.
They are coming after everything in Black America.
MAGA and Donald Trump are specifically targeting Black America.
They are going after the money. Attack Black Lives Matter. Attack critical race theory. Attack woke, DEI. MAGA wants to defund Black America. This is a perfect example of their desire to completely degrade and de-emphasize Black people.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, today on The Breakdown, we're talking about something that's been trending in wellness spaces, medical circles, and even celebrity culture, longevity medicine. But this isn't just about living longer. It's about living better. It's about aging with strength, mobility, and independence, and making sure that we grow older and we're not just surviving, we're thriving. And for Black communities in particular, this conversation is urgent because we all know the statistics: higher rates of chronic illness, higher rates of disability, lower access to preventative care. And too often we're not introduced to longevity until after the damage has already been done. So that's why we're bringing Dr. Brian Nwanunu, an orthopedic surgeon, into the conversation. He works directly with patients that are navigating pain, mobility challenges, and he understands the long-term impact of aging, and he's also part of a growing movement focused on prevention and longevity-based care. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us here on The Breakdown.
I think there may be a slight audio issue because I cannot hear you.
Oh,
It just went out.
man.
I don't
Did it
know if you
really?
can hear me.
Okay. Well, here's what we can do. If he cannot hear us, folks, this is live TV. We will have to pre-record his interview and bring him back into the show because you still can't hear me now. No, he cannot. All right. That's all right. We will make sure to have this conversation here on The Breakdown because it's so important that we talk about longevity medicine. All right, that is going to do it for us here on The Breakdown. We thank you so much for joining us today. As always, you can go to Black Star Network for news 24 hours a day. We'll be back tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern time. And of course, Roland Martin will have his Roland Martin Unfiltered show here on the Black Star Network. His show starts at 6 p.m. Eastern. It lasts until 8. We just appreciate you guys for supporting us here on the Black Star Network. I'm Brittany Noble. You can follow me online at The Noble Journalist, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Have a great day.